Hi, welcome to Gabbing with Girlfriends. And my girlfriend today is a long lost friend. I can't even believe, but I shouldn't say friend because no friend would allow us to go this long without being in touch, right? Well, who moves to Dallas?
I do
You
to
did.
to be on in 5 different radio markets in America. Thank you very much. That's what happened once I moved to Dallas. So yes, Gloria and I are long lost friends from when I was living in the UK. And when I lived in the UK, all I wanted to do was live in the USA. And I'll be honest, because I was always into rock and metal music. People used to say to me, "Oh, you're friends with Gloria Butler? She's Geezer Butler's wife." And I go, "Yeah," and she lives right off Sunset by this great Starbucks. So I always gravitated towards dynamic people who I liked, who used to live in Los Angeles, because I was obsessed with living in the States, and I used to go to Los Angeles and visit quite a bit. And we always used to hang out. And every so often, Gloria would help hook me up with radio people who I needed to bother to try and get jobs from, and I'd send emails to them because she's managed various bands during her career. And basically, I moved to America and thought, well, I don't need Gloria anymore, so I'm going to stop talking to her now.
Obviously,
Joke.
obviously. I could have said that better myself, but I'll tell you something. It's so funny to do this with a professional speaker because you just took control. You
Well,
just went for it.
the most of my radio stuff is obviously done on the radio, but I do some of this type of stuff now for back in the UK, because they used to call me every so often at this station called Talk Radio, which is national talk format in England, for a kind of roundup of what's happening in the States. And then this was when I was in Phoenix, and then I moved to Dallas, and I couldn't do it for a while just because I was too busy with the move and the new job that then became like 5 new jobs. Because did I mention
So,
I'm on five different radio?
no, yes, you did. I don't get it. Tell me.
So I moved to Dallas to primarily be on the alternative radio station here. And then to cut a long story short, bosses in different places heard about the success that we were having with the ratings in Dallas, and suddenly thought, "But there's this British person that's on in Texas. What the hell?" Because I think initially they went, "Someone's put a British person on in Texas? How can this be?" And then their opinion went to, "Oh my God, have you seen the ratings? If it can work in Texas, maybe we should try it in, I don't know, San Diego or Seattle, etc., etc." So they started giving me cover on these other radio stations, rock stations and alternative stations, all owned by the company Odyssey, who hire me. And it's got to the point now where I'm in 5 markets every day, doing different shows. I voice track them. So they're done not in real time, but kind of in real time. Like it's 9, 10 hours in a studio a day, doing stuff individually for these different markets. So, for example, I mean, if you listen to the station in Seattle, the idea, I don't claim that I'm in Seattle, but the idea is that you would think that I was live and local in Seattle if I was coming out of your radio or your Alexa or whatever it is. And so, yeah, I do these 5 different markets every day. But what I was going to say was the last time I did something like this, so I was doing this talk radio thing, and they used to phone me up, put me on air, and it was
Who's
always
they? They meaning who?
the producers or whoever was on
Okay.
air at Talk
Okay.
Radio at the time. They just like to, British person's perspective on whatever was going on in the UK. So I do these little 20-minute bits. And when I did them originally, they used to call me up, and to be honest, I'd just be like in my pants on the sofa, not really caring because I was on the phone, and I'd make it up as I was going along. And it was always, Trump this, Biden that, blah, 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 blah. Sometimes I'd just argue with the jock for the sake of it, and then we'd finish up, and then we'd do it the next week. Anyway, I moved, didn't do it for a while because I was too busy. And then they emailed me a while ago and said, "Oh, can you come back and do some segments?" What no one told me was Talk Radio had turned into Talk TV. So, yeah, it's on the radio, but it's also simulcast on national TV, on cable in England now. And so with like 20 minutes warning, I was like, hang on a minute.
Oh,
You
no
didn't tell me I
way.
was going to be on people's TVs. I'm not dressed for this. I'm not like, I haven't got a backdrop. I said, you're about to see a fridge fridge for the fridge magnets. So my best backdrop is the wall behind me. I'm like, it's a background, it'll do. So anyway, normally when I do these kind of things, I'm on air with them. Chit-chatting. It's the station that's got Piers Morgan on it. They haven't booked me for Piers Morgan yet. I'm waiting to build up to that. But yeah, so the last time I did this like on camera doing a chit chat was on there, discussing all kinds of stuff that I was prepared to talk about, but not prepared to be looked at. And the worst thing is, you get to see the camera in their studio. So it's radio, right? But also TV. They turned it into a TV studio. So all I can see looking at their camera is a massive me on this wall of TVs behind the main presenter, like they have in a proper TV setup. I was like, my God.
That's scary.
I said, you guys need to start paying me more for this. You've gone TV. I need hair and makeup, darling.
That's very funny. So how do people know to listen in England? How do they know?
Well, in England, I don't think you can hear me apart from when I do the stuff for Talk TV, and that happens.
No, but that's what I mean.
Yeah, whenever they need me. I don't know, because they'll tell me when they want me to go on, and I'll tell them like if I can do it. They wanted me for something yesterday, and I was like, I've not enough time. But I pop up from time to time. You know what people in England should do? They should just email that Piers Morgan show and say we should get Ian Camfield on, and then I'll start doing that. I need a little bit more prime time exposure on their network, I think.
Yeah, I should think so. So do you love Dallas? I'm dying to know.
Yeah, I do. I love the Americana of the whole thing. I mean,
you know I'm a Texan, right? I was born in Fort Worth.
Yes. Okay.
I
do. I remember
Just
that.
making sure.
Yeah. It's not been that long. I remember. Do you still get up at 5 o'clock in the morning? I used to say that in front of her husband, and she said, "Don't mention to my husband, what time I get up in the morning."
Everybody knows I get up at 5 in the morning. How bizarre is that? So you love it there?
Yeah, so I was in Phoenix for nearly 4 years, and I love Phoenix. So my whole thing is I've never been a big fan of England, where I'm from. I always say the only thing that's British about me is my accent and place of birth. In all other regards, I'm more American than most Americans. Like I from the very first time I went to the States, I loved it, and I knew it was where I wanted to be. And so this job came up in Phoenix, and I really
But you were in New York before that.
I was in New York, yeah. And New York really made me appreciate America even more, because I was always fixated on the West Coast when I lived in England,
right?
Because the West Coast is so different to England. New York, similar in a lot of ways to London. So I was never really enamored with New York. And then a job came up in New York. And I wasn't going to say no, because it's New York. And I went there initially thinking that, well, I'll do New York for a while because it will be easier to get to LA. Like that.
And that was market number one.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and what I realized was after about a month of being there was that although it looks a little similar to London and it's got the seasons and all that kind of stuff, once you actually live there, especially if you live in Manhattan, as I did, if you live and work in Manhattan, it's actually nothing like London. I realized as soon as I was after about a month of being there, that actually it was nothing like London, because most of the things that frustrate me about London, which is like how slow it is and how lazy everyone is and how nothing works properly and nothing really gets done, you can't be like that in Manhattan, because as I always said, it will eat you up and shit you out. I mean, it is the ultimate work hard, play hard combo. And I absolutely loved it. And also, I think another thing that put me off of New York was when I used to visit, I would go with Brits. And every Brit that I went with used to think that they wanted to live there. That used to really put me off. See, I'd go to LA and a lot of Brits would go, "Oh, I don't like it. It's too different." And after I've been there for about a month, I thought most of my British friends who think they want to live in New York, they would be done in a month if they had to live and work here, because it's just so competitive.
Oh, no. So yeah, it's hard.
I really fell in love with that kind of everyone's got somewhere to be, something to do. You've just got to keep up, that kind of lifestyle. And so I did K-Rock, and I loved it. From a work point of view, it was absolutely chaos It was my first taste of sort of like cutthroat corporate America. I mean,
I
it
was just
was
going to say, that couldn't be any more of a corporate place.
oh,
I mean,
absolutely. And when I was there, I mean, so I got hired by a market manager and a program director, which is a pretty standard setup at radio stations. So it's K Rock in New York. It's the station that Howard Stern used to do his show from, that got syndicated around the States for many, many years. The market manager was the guy who hired Howard Stern in New York, right? He'd been there 25 years. So a long tenure, and obviously the man who brought Howard Stern to New York, he's got a lot of respect, a lot of history in that market. He got fired in my second week there.
was
The
that right?
lady, the lady that was the program director, she got fired in my fifth week there, and from that point onwards, it was just chaos. Too many cooks in the kitchen, running the station, making bad decisions, sometimes good decisions. It was just
And was Mike Peer there then, or was he already gone?
I used to do a syndicated show from London, and Mike Peer was there at that point. He wasn't when I was physically in New York working for K Rock, but I do remember him because we used to have a show when I was in the UK that was on K Rock in New York, and also in the UK. That's how K Rock in New York knew of me, and entertained the idea of moving me out there. So anyway, it was absolute chaos, and it was I could tell it was like working for the mafia as well, because it wasn't only cutthroat American corporate brutality. Some of the people that were there, I mean, I go in for meetings with some of the highest people at corporate and feel like I was in an episode of The Sopranos. It really was like, that kind of vibe. And anyway, in the end, they screwed up the station. They ended up flipping the format, so we all got fired. And I had to go back to England because my visa was tied into that job. And so I was there for a little over a year. And that experience, I think it taught me three things. One, I shouldn't be so fixated on just living in Los Angeles, which I had been previously for quite some time, because I'd gone to New York, which I didn't even know if I'd like. I just thought it was a great business opportunity. And I loved it. And it was such a different place. So it kind of opened my eyes to maybe if it's a decent town. I'm not saying every town and city in America is decent, but if it's a decent one, then maybe I just prefer it because it's America, and America is better than England. The second thing was that there was kind of a perverse side to me that liked this aspect of corporate America, even though it had crushed my dreams for then, at least for the time being. I was sort of enamored by it because even though, bad decisions could get made and it's so cutthroat, I'd rather that than the just sheer mediocrity of how a lot of business gets done in the UK. And the third thing was, and this is probably the most crucial thing, it really just reinforced how much I couldn't stand being in England, because it was one thing to want to be in the States and then get there. It's a whole other thing. And I've spoken to other people who've said this, had this experience specifically about New York, that if you go there and you like it, like really like it, like I did, and it ends before you want it to end, and you have to go back to where you were before, that sets a fire inside you that you have to get back. And I didn't necessarily want to get back to New York, but I knew that I had to get back to the States, because I went back to England and I got my old job back in England. I was very grateful to those people, and I was there for probably about 6 years. And again, doing radio is great because
Were you at Global?
Yes. Radio's, not real work. You could be digging ditches. I always say it's better than doing a real job. But I just didn't want to be in England that whole time. And I speak to people now who, quite a few different people have said to me, for the first 6 months or so after you came back from New York, you were no one could be around you because you were horrible to everyone. Because I still had this New York of like, why is it not working? Why is the answer no? Why? I remember going back to England, and I own a flat in London, right? So it was a flat that I had, papers that I owned and everything. I'd rented it out for the time I was in New York. And I went back there, And I remember when I was in New York, I think it took me like less than 3 days to get cable all hooked up in a new apartment where I was, a new person, legal alien, living with a green card, just getting a bank account and all that stuff. Got cable in 3 days. I go back to England. I think it took 6 weeks for me to get cable hooked up at the apartment that I'd owned for like 10 years. And
That's funny. And I know,
you know what I mean?
But I didn't know you had a green card. How'd you get a green card?
No. I don't have a green card. It's still on visas. So,
Oh.
So yeah, I'm working for the green card. I would
Got it.
very much like a green card. I have papers filed, but it takes forever. And then COVID held everything up. In fact, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually, because of the job and the move and COVID and everything, this is the longest period that I haven't been back to England. When I lived in New York and then in Phoenix, I used to go back every Christmas, but it's been nearly 5 years since I've been back to the UK.
Wow.
I know, on this run. And actually, I was actually emailing my immigration attorneys today to ask them when the green card papers are likely to come up, because I know there's the way that they do it is if you get a preliminary yes, you then have to have other stuff. And there's a period of time where between the preliminary yes and getting the actual 100% clarification, you can't leave America.
That's
and
right.
I emailed them and said, do you have any idea of the timeline? Because I'm thinking about going back to England for Christmas, but I don't want to make arrangements for that trip and then have to stay in America. And they were like, no, it won't be till at least next year. I have to say, aside from my family, who I'm close to and I do miss, the idea that, and I won't go back until Christmas, that if I go back this December, I won't have set foot on English soil for 5 years. I find that so sexy. I'm like, oh yes, 5 years of living in a proper country, not over there.
So does your family come visit you?
They have done. I mean, I've not seen them for that period of time. They used to come each year in Phoenix, but then I moved to Dallas, and then COVID, the travel was crazy for a couple of years, and then there was some work stuff going on that made it difficult because I didn't know when I was actually going to be in Dallas. Yeah. So they will do again, and they have done, but that's been tough because if I go back at Christmas, me and my family won't have physically been in the same room for 5 years, and I'm grateful for how technology is. I think I would feel different regarding how I do for my sort of escapism from the UK if we didn't have the tech that we have now. I love that I can FaceTime or even just have text conversations in real time, even with a time difference and stuff like that. Like I've got 2 young nieces and a nephew. My eldest niece is 11. She's got a cell phone now. So I can text her and she'll tell me, what she's doing at that point, at that time of day. And we can go back and forth. Not too much because now she's 11. She's not really interested in her uncle anymore. But, go back.
Does she talk about Harry Styles nonstop?
No, she talks about
Taylor Swift.
Harry Potter. Taylor Swift, yes. And she's actually very theatrical. She goes to a load of different theater school stuff, and she gets roles, small roles in like professional productions now. So she's the artistic one in the family. And I keep on saying to her, if I come back at Christmas, because she's got an audition for Panto, which people watching in England will know what that is. If you're in America, you can Google it. You won't understand it because no Americans do.
Yeah, I still don't.
Right,
I've raised 2 children in England, and I still don't get it. To me, it's like Marmite. There's no rhyme or reason.
Right, exactly. So yeah, she's got an audition for Panto, and so I said, so if you get this part, right, I need backstage passes, and they have to be laminates because. And she's like, well, I don't know what that. I said, look, and I'll show her. I'll be like, look, Iron Maiden give me these. I need special treatment at your Panto as well.
That's cute. That's really cute. Now, what's your nephew?
He has just turned 6, so he's 6, and the nieces are 10 and about to be, or later on in the year, 12. So, as I said, from the point of view from being away from the family, that's tough, although easier because I mean, it's funny with that, and you must get that by having family in different parts of the world. Although I find that difficult, my sister often tells me that I'm more active in the lives of her kids than some of her relatives who live 20 minutes drive away from where they are in the UK, because they're not, they don't text her kids, or they don't FaceTime as often.
I get it.
So, although I'm not physically there and haven't been physically there for nearly 5 years, the tech is in a place where it's still easy to see what's going on and
Yeah.
play a part.
And I mean, it must be very special for them that you're in America too.
Yeah, I think so. It's funny because they're sort of warming to the idea of America. So my nephew, they've all been to the States, but my nephew was too young to remember that he's been here, but he knows what America is. It's funny, actually, that they all say your country now, but when they were younger, my nieces used to say to me, because I guess this is what they say in, what is it, in Frozen, when they were all obsessed with Frozen when they were younger, they used to say to me, what time is it in your land? And my nephew's all about Marvel movies and everything like that. So he'll say to me, what time is it in your world? But now they know it's country. So when I'm on the phone to him, I'll say, what's going on in your world today? He'll say, not my world, it's my country.
Oh my God, how cute is that?
So yeah, but yeah, I like it's, as I said, it's good to I keep in touch in the way that we can. But in all other regards, like even other people that I like, I say to them, well, you can come and visit. I've got a second bedroom and bathroom. I honestly, I don't miss anyone else or anything else. And I think my desire to be in the States was always so high. And also, when you do radio here, or many things in corporate America, but radio is such a cutthroat industry. It takes a lot to get the job, and then it takes even more to keep the job, or jobs in my case, because they're always hiring and firing. And I've had places where I've been fired and then rehired. I mean, that also happens all the time as well. So it's never dimmed my enthusiasm for America. If anything, it's made me want it even more. But I have this kind of still this burning desire. So therefore, as I said, I kind of get excited, as family aside, about the length of time that I haven't been to the States for. And I'll tell you this apparently is a thing with Brits who love America, because I've got another friend who lives in LA who's British. Now, we're arguing at the moment because I think I beat his record for not going back to England if I stay here for 5 years. But he claims that it was 6 years that he didn't go back for. And I was like, damn. And then the other week, I went down to Austin, and I went to see the Sisters of Mercy, right? Because they didn't have a Dallas show. And I was hanging out with my buddy Ben, who's their guitarist. So he's British. He lives in England. But he's got this friend who he's known since school, who's a Brit who lives in Austin, right? So I meet this guy, Justin, his name was. And he might dislike England and love America almost as much as I do. And we're having this, oh, isn't it great? We'd never go back, blah, 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 conversation. And so I told him this thing about how I was excited not to return to England for 5 years. And he said to me, it's funny. I've got another British friend who lives in Seattle, and he and I have got this contest as to who cannot go back to England for the longest. And I said, oh, that's funny, because I've got that with one of my friends. And this guy said to me, it's got to the point that my friend's dad has got Parkinson's now. So, that's something he's needing to deal with. And my friend needs to go back and see his dad. But he's insisting that I go back with him at the same time. Otherwise, I win the bet.
Oh, my God. That's funny. That's funny. So are there expats in Dallas that you
There aren't
have
that
found?
many, and I'm very happy about that, because I like to be special, In fact, you find your favorite places that you go to, and I'm a creature of habit. There's a diner that I go to for brunch on the weekends, and we'll go up there every so often, and the staff in there know me, and they'll say, "Oh, we had one of your country people in this week," and my first question is always, were they visiting or living? Because if they're living, you have to ban them. They can't be in here. I don't want to be around other Brits. If they're visiting, then it's fine. So no, I'll tell you what, there is, any major US city's always got a British shop. there is one of those. It's about 40 minutes drive from me. It's in a part of, or kind of Dallas, but it's called Grapevine. So there's this place called British Emporium. So I go there like a couple of times a year. Normally, if I'm going to be here for Christmas, always before Christmas, because there's certain Christmas things I like the roses, candies that you get,
Right, right.
the different chocolates and the different sweet stuff that you can get in England. So I go there, and that almost bankrupts me, because you go to any of those British places and everything is like 10 times
Crazy.
the price, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
crazy. But do you ever go to World Market?
I do go to World Market.
They
do
have a fair amount.
They do, but and I was very perplexed that when I was there before Christmas just gone, they had quality streets, but not roses. And roses is the best Christmas chocolate. I didn't want quality streets. I wanted roses. So,
but if you needed tinned spaghetti for your toast, or if you needed, they have that.
Yes, they do. They have.
My husband will only eat English baked beans, for example. He won't eat.
Right. Yes.
American
No, that's true.
beans.
Well, when my dad has visited, I've always had to get him English baked beans. Does your husband also favor any kind of sauces? Because my dad needs daddy sauce, or was it
HP sauce?
HP. No, you're right. HP.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the brown sauce, the brown HP sauce.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. He needs that. So no, I mean, I'm more. To be honest, I spend more time in those places if my dad is coming over. My dad's, one of these old school Brits who, was raised in the 60s. So he only eats 5 things. I mean, literally 5 things. So he's hard to cater for if you're making him dinner in England, let alone if you've got to buy, stuff in a country when you're 5,000 miles away,
Thanks so much for tuning in today, and be sure to follow Gabbing with Girlfriends on here so you never miss an episode. You can also find us on social media for more fun and in-depth conversations. Thank you.